recap if you are joining us. At least 12 people have been killed at Bondi Beach in Sydney, with 29 currently in hospital. One of the gunmen is among the dead. Footage from the scene shows a man wresting a pump-action shotgun from one of the gunmen. The attack happened as people celebrated the Jewish festival of Hanukkah, which starts today. In a press conference, the New South Wales Police Premier Chris Mims said that one of the gunmen had been killed and another was in custody.
Two individuals began firing on a crowded group of families on Bondi Beach at Archer Park. This cowardly act of terrifying violence is shocking and painful to see and represents some of our worst fears about terrorism in Sydney. I very sadly need to report that as of now, there are at least 12 individuals that have been killed. One of the offenders has also been killed and one is in custody. This attack was designed to target Sydney's Jewish community on the first day of Hanukkah.
Just to reiterate there, 12 dead, 29 injured, including a child and a police officer. Australian police say they are currently investigating if there is a third offender. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese says the evil that was unleashed at Bondi Beach today is beyond comprehension.
This afternoon, there has been a devastating terrorist incident at Bondi at the Hanukkah by the Sea celebration. This is a targeted attack on Jewish Australians on the first day of Hanukkah, which should be a day of joy, a celebration of faith. An act of evil anti-Semitism, terrorism that has struck the heart of our nation. An attack on Jewish Australians is an attack on every Australian, and every Australian tonight will be, like me, devastated.
Strong words. More than 50 gunshots were heard as hundreds of people fled the scene in Sydney at around 6:40 p.m. local time.
Ran onto the beach. I guess everyone ran onto the beach. It was pretty terrifying. And yeah, I eventually went back to see what was happening. A few people helped. We sort of helped a few old people get up and get out of there, but it was like there were lots of bodies on the floor.
There has been plenty of reaction here in the UK, with the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, saying it is deeply distressing news and described it as an appalling attack. London Mayor Sadiq Khan has announced that extra officers from the Metropolitan Police will be on the streets of London following the attack. He says, "My thoughts and condolences, along with the rest of London, are with everyone affected by the horrific attack at Bondi Beach, Australia today." Meanwhile, Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has reacted to the tragic events in Australia, saying the Hanukkah party shooting in Australia is horrendous. The threat is everywhere.
Genuinely horrendous. Last I hear, it's 10 dead and many, many wounded. I did see some video of an heroic Australian, taking the gun out of the hands of one of these terrorists. Desperately sorry for the Jewish community in Sydney, which is quite considerable. But equally, you realise actually the threat to the Jewish people is everywhere. It's not just in Manchester or in parts of North London, it's all over the world. And there is this real poison.
Earlier, we were joined by Sky News Australia journalist Shari Markson, who was speaking to us from Bondi Beach.
Police have this evening confirmed that they did find explosive devices in a car on Canberra Parade here on Bondi. It's just the main road behind us. So we don't know what that explosive device was intended to be used for. There were about 50 or 60 shots. This went on for a number of minutes. I'm a Jewish Australian. I've been reporting on the anti-Semitism crisis every single day for the past 2 years. I've been imploring the federal government, the Prime Minister, to take action. He hasn't taken enough action on the anti-Semitism that we've seen explode in the wake of October 7. Even our anti-Semitism envoy handed down a report with recommendations 3 or 4 months ago. He still hasn't acted on those recommendations, hasn't even said he will accept them. So the Jewish community has been vulnerable. We've been like sitting ducks here. It's not a surprise that something like this has happened. We've been warning that a serious event, that lives would be lost if the authorities didn't take anti-Semitism seriously, and they just didn't. They didn't act on it. Because of local domestic political issues. We had a federal election here in May. Some of the marginal seats that were in question are in areas that have a large Muslim community. So the ministers of this Labor government didn't want to be seen to be talking about anti-Semitism so much. It's left us very vulnerable. We have already been living in fear and anxiety. It's the first day of Hanukkah here in Australia. I was at a similar Hanukkah celebration just up the road from the one that was targeted tonight. Families, I mean, I've been here since this afternoon. I've been interviewing people who are on the scene, people who lost the family members or whose family members were shot, parents whose 3-year-old little girl went missing and they found her under the body of a woman who'd been shot. You know, she took the bullet to save this 3-year-old girl who she didn't even know, to save that 3-year-old girl's life after she became separated from her parents. This is the worst massacre we've had in Australia since Port Arthur. This is absolutely devastating. Our country will never be the same. Our Jewish community will never be the same. No one's going to feel safe. If this can happen at Bondi, the iconic Bondi Beach, it can happen anywhere.
Yeah, you can see live pictures on your screen now of the scene. Very dark, very quiet now. Obviously the tape from the police vehicles there still. Absolutely devastating. And as you've just heard, Australia has seen the largest spike in anti-Semitic attacks of all the J7 countries. The J7 refers to the 7 countries around the world that have the largest Jewish communities. That obviously does include the UK as well as America, Australia, Canada, France and Germany, to name but some of them there. So it's not like this was unexpected in a way. The J7 meeting task force held their first meeting ever in Australia for the first time at the beginning of December, which just goes to show exactly how bad the threat to the Jewish community in Australia was being taken. And you also heard there that pretty much nothing has been done after that meeting, and the threat has escalated. Breaking in the last hour, we can now name one of the alleged attackers. That's authorities in Australia have confirmed that Naveed Akram, 24, from Bondi Beach in Sydney's southwest, was one of the attackers. You can see a picture of him there. His driving licence has also been found at the scene. He was shot by the authorities, is arrested, remains in custody and remains in hospital. But just to reiterate, 12 people are dead. They went for a picnic by the sea. They're dead, including a child and a police officer. And as you've heard earlier on from Michael Putul's show, some incredibly brave Australians there. Possibly more would have been killed if one man had not run in and grabbed the gun from one of the attackers. Incredibly proud people, incredibly brave people as well. And interesting what Anthony Albanese, the Prime Minister, says, that his government now, this affects every Australian, not just Jewish Australians, every Australian. Showing some backbone that you do wonder is slightly lacking in some other countries, it has to be said. OK, now let's talk to activist Lily Moo, who's joining me in the studio. Lily has spent many, many years now fighting against anti-Semitism. Lily, just start your background, why you are so involved in fighting anti-Semitism, not just in this country, but around the world.
Hello to you and all of your audience. And first and foremost, my deepest condolences to the Jewish community around the world, especially to Australia and all the families who have been affected by this terrorist tragedy. It is indeed an act of terrorism. What I call this is a globalized act of intifada, and it is what the Palestinian supporters for the past 3 years in the Western societies, whether it was in Australia on their millions, in Sydney a few months ago, or in London in their millions over the past 2 years, or in America. They have been calling for globalization of Intifada, which is an act of terrorism against the Jewish community and starting with an uprising of Islamic invasion of the West. And numerous attacks have followed this demand for the globalization of Intifada, starting from the terrorist attacks in Washington against the embassy members of Israeli embassy members.
Of course, that young Israeli couple.
Yes, and then again on Yom Kippur we had here in Manchester an attack on the Jewish synagogue, and now we have again in another country of the Commonwealth and the J7, like we mentioned, a huge attack on a beautiful group of civilians celebrating a festival of light, a religious festival of lights. Now, Islamic attacks on religious festivals that are not Islamic are constantly taking place in countries that are not in places of conflict. And this is not only not being addressed, it is, even earlier today, I was watching different news outlets from Australia itself, and the commentators were not openly, actively confirming the fact that this was an attack on a Jewish community. While they mentioned that there was a Hanukkah celebration in the most prominent Jewish neighborhood in Sydney, Bondi Beach, but let's just pretend that this is just another act of a gun incident. This was a terrorism, an act of terrorism, globalized intifada, and in the past 40 years, Australian Jewish community have been under attack, targeted and systemic attack, which have been either facilitated or carried out by the Islamic Republic's allies and proxies.
We have had no confirmation that this was an Islamic terrorism attack. I mean, many people are obviously putting two and two together. We have now named the attacker, and that is Naveed Akram, 24, from Bonnyrigg in Sydney's south west. He is still alive and remains in custody. Lily, the one thing I keep coming back to here is the UK finds itself in a very, very similar situation to Australia with, let's think how we should put this, tiptoeing around the sensitivities of some communities, i.e. the Islamic community, whilst seemingly be willing to throw other communities, i.e. the Jewish community, under the proverbial bus. Why do you think that is? Absolutely.
Now, I'm going to reiterate my point regarding the Islamic terrorism here. Let us not forget that most of the Islamic terrorist activities and attacks that have taken place in the past half a century have all been supported and facilitated and even taught through the camps of the communist Marxists, which is a godless group. So the very self-hating white person in the West is also allowing for and facilitating and is growing and is helping the radicalization of the white youth community in Europe too, whether it is in Britain or the ISIS French and European fighters that we witnessed over the past 10 years alone. So this is not just an Islamic attack, it's an Islamic leftist attack. Let us be correct about that.
Someone did remark earlier on today that the biggest terrorist actually in the West is the liberal left rather than the Islamic, because they are almost allowing this to happen under our own noses?
I wouldn't say they are almost allowing. I would say they want to hug terrorism out of a suicide bomber. Delusional.
It's frightening. The other thing I wanted to mention to you, Lily, I mean, just on the 12th of December, which was Friday, Miznon restaurant, there's one in London, in Notting Hill, they're Jewish-owned, and there's one, ironically, in Melbourne. Now, they both saw quite aggressive protests encouraged on them, where that phrase, globalise the intifada, and from the river to the sea, the chants we are so used to hearing on our streets at the moment that we almost now accept it. And yet the meanings of those two phrases.
Yes, I just want to say, in the same way that Palestine has no borders, this river and that sea are unknown to most people who are calling out for it. So we don't know whether they're calling from the River Thames to the English Channel to globalize the Intifada, or from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea. I mean, figure it out, and please let us know how we can handle you, because this whole globalization of Intifada is taking lives of 8-year-old children on the beach in Australia today.
Lily Moo, thank you very much.
Before I may go, I have a question. Yeah, I have a big request. We, two groups in London right now, Stop the Hate and Our Fight UK, are holding a vigil in solidarity and unity with the Jewish community in the UK and in Australia at 5 p.m. today outside the Australian Commission to light Hanukkah lights and hold a vigil for the lost lives. Please show up, show solidarity and unity. If you do care about the UK, if you do care about your Jewish neighbors, show us some support. I am not Jewish myself, but I will wear my Star of David in support and solidarity of all of my Jewish and Israeli friends.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Lily Moo, and well said. And I can just testify that you are indeed wearing your Star of David today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lily Moo. And as always with this programme and every programme on GB News, please do let us know what you are thinking. Certainly if you want to talk, we're here for you. gbnews.com/your say, and we will read out any comments. And we're certainly here if you're worried or you're concerned. I particularly want to hear from you if you're Jewish and you're more worried, you're waking up more worried this morning than you were yesterday, and it's not been easy for the Jewish community recently, but this morning is, as I said, it's just one of those awful, awful things that you kind of knew was going to come.